No vaccines, no office visits. That's what one pediatrician is saying to his patients. He is refusing to see a kid unless they're vaccinated or plan to be vaccinated. Now, this debate over vaccinations is a heated one among parents and among a lot of people. Very opinionated moms and dads on each side and doctors. This is a story that is being shared like crazy on our Facebook page. So many comments, too. Rachel said, it's his office. Don't like it. Find someone else. Kathy posted, I wouldn't trust my kids to a doctor who forced me to do anything to my children. Well, there is a recent op-ed on CNN.com where Dr. Aaron Carroll says childhood vaccinations are safe and, more importantly, vital to a healthy nation. Dr. Carroll joins us now for more on this debate. Dr. Carroll, good to have you.
Thanks for having me.
I can't think of a more heated debate when it comes to vaccinations because both sides are so passionate about this. And I want to start with the very first question to you. And this comes from Cheryl on Facebook, or it spawns from that. She says, the risk of vaccinating outweighs the benefits. No shots for us. There are parents that believe that through and through. Why do they believe vaccinations are so terrible? And do you agree with them?
Well, I don't agree with that. I think that the benefits far outweigh the harms. I think people believe it because they hear bad stories. A lot of these stories often happen at the time that people are getting vaccines because they get a lot of them, kids do. And so therefore they think that because things happen at the same time, that one caused the other. The other part is that there's a lot of pseudoscience and a lot of celebrities and a lot of other people who keep repeating this. And as you keep doing that, it gets ingrained in people's minds that somehow vaccines aren't safe. They are, and they do a great good for society.
You've heard Jenny McCarthy speak out for years about vaccinations and about the link to autism. She has clarified that a little bit, saying she means more clean vaccinations. But really, the autism debate and whether or not vaccinations cause autism is what so many parents are concerned about. Is it pseudoscience? Are they just misled? And why are they so passionate about it? They are being misled.
Well, people are passionate about it because they worry about it. There's been a lot of news on autism. There has definitely been an increase in the diagnosis of it. Some of it because we're actually much more aware that it exists now, and we're getting better and better at recognizing it. Some of that is because we've broadened the definition of what we will call an autism spectrum disorder. But there have been so many huge, good, randomized controlled trials showing that vaccines are safe and that vaccines don't cause autism. And a lot of the research that has shown a link, not only is it incorrect, but some have labeled it a fraud in the past. There have been real concerns that some of the data might even have been faked.
Well, let's talk about the implications if you don't vaccinate your kids. You know, Andrea says on Facebook, whatever floats your boat, as long as you don't sink mine, making the connection that if your kids aren't vaccinated, they can get some of the things that can then spread to my kid in my school. Let's talk about what the dangers are if kids aren't vaccinated, in your opinion.
Yeah, if they're not vaccinated, they can be a real central of where there could be a problem because of an outbreak. Children who are not vaccinated are more likely to pick up the disease from someone else. And if enough children are not vaccinated, they can lead everyone to an increased risk of actually getting the disease. When most children are vaccinated, in fact, if almost all are, we develop what's called herd immunity. It's impossible, for the most part, for the disease to break into the community. But as more and more people are not vaccinated, not only does it increase the risk that the disease can occur, it increases the chance that it gets passed around and that even vaccinated children can be at risk. And it's for this reason that a number of school systems have started to refuse to allow children who are unvaccinated to attend schools once an outbreak begins. It's really well thought that prevents the outbreaks from spreading further.
So you have the parents that are worried about vaccinating their kids because of what can happen possibly with autism, but then you have the parents that vaccinate their kids and they're at school with the kids that aren't vaccinated. Could they get sick, and how could they get sick if they've been vaccinated?
Well, vaccines aren't 100% protective. They certainly increase the chance that you won't get the disease if you're exposed to it, but they don't reduce it to zero. And each time we do a vaccination, we increase that chance that you won't get the disease. But again, it's not zero. So not only do you need to be vaccinated, you also want to really reduce the chance that you're going to come around anyone who is sick with that disease. And children who are not vaccinated increase the risk that they could get the disease and therefore expose it to your children. So when enough children don't get vaccinated, it can be a real problem even for everybody else.
I think anyone can sympathize with a parent that is fearful when they hear two sides of it. They don't know which is worse, to vaccinate or not to vaccinate. Is it the responsibility of a doctor to take the stand that this pediatrician did in this op-ed and say, since he feels strongly about it, you can't come to my office unless you're vaccinating your kids?
It's hard to go that far because we as doctors often find that patients don't take the advice that we give. If we refused to treat any patient that didn't do exactly what we said, we'd have no patients left. Certainly, I think it's our goal to educate patients, to try to help them make the decision that's best for them and their children. This is rather extreme, and to refuse to see children who, if they've been vaccinated, hurts the child just as much as it's punishing the parent.
The parents are speaking out as well. Tammy on Facebook said, "I'd do it again in an instant, no question about it. Look at all the innocent children suffering and dying because their parents don't believe in it," talking about vaccinations. How do you handle when you have parents come in and they're struggling so much with the decision? How is it that you talk them either into or out of your office when it comes to vaccinations?
Well, a lot of it is going over I try to break down the science and what kind of studies have been done, how big they are. It's important to understand that the small, if you want to even call them studies, that link vaccine to autism are not well done. And then there are studies of millions and millions of children when aggregated together, all showing that vaccines don't cause autism. There are diseases that existed only decades ago that are now almost eradicated in the United States, diseases I've never seen as a pediatrician because vaccines have taken care of them. There's a good argument to be made that vaccines are one of the greatest public health achievements almost ever with respect to our ability to reduce the risk of children getting diseases that could lead to serious harm and even death. The benefits way, way, way outweigh the harms.
And you feel very strongly about that. But, Doctor, I know there are so many parents. I've seen them on my Facebook feed. I'm not a parent yet, but I see them speaking out and saying, don't vaccinate your kids. They feel so strongly about it. And you make the point that you can Google anything and you can go online and find an argument to whatever it is that you are trying to find an argument to. Is that the danger here, that there's just so much information out there and so much of it is not vetted?
Well, I think it's that it's not vetted. I think that, information is not all the same. Good, well-designed studies that have been published in the peer-reviewed literature have the weight of being reviewed by other experts and the endorsement of people who understand how research is done. Reading just an anecdote or a story is not the same thing. The plural of anecdote is not data. And just because you've heard something many times does not make it true. Most, if not all, sort of reputable sources and organizations of professionals in medicine and pediatrics all endorse the fact that vaccines do not cause autism. Vaccines are safe and they do an enormous amount of good. And you have to understand who is talking, not just what you're reading.
Dr. Carroll, thanks so much for being with me. We appreciate you taking the time.